Hello, welcome to Real Reds Talk. My name is Sam. I'm joined by Shreyas. We are here for the breaking news show. You probably wonder where Nick is. He's taking some well-deserved time off in a campsite somewhere up north, having a lovely little time. So he will be back. We are here to couple of news stories. Give you the latest rumours and what's going on at Manchester United. Obviously, we've got a game tomorrow at Old Trafford, Burnley in the League Cup, so we will touch on that because obviously Shreyas wasn't on for the preview. But first things first, Shreyas, how are you? How's your week been so far?
Yeah, it's been a really good week and pretty happy now that Manchester United are going to be back after, it's pretty much a month or so. The World Cup has been, it has taken a lot of flavor out.
It's
So
been
it's good that
eventful, hasn't it?
Manchester United,
Been
yeah, definitely has been eventful, especially the final as well. I don't think any game in this World Cup so far, you could just say that it's been mediocre or something. Every single game has had some sort of a twist or a turn. So
mm,
yeah, it's good to see that club football is going to be back really soon now.
yeah, it's good. It's good to get back into the swing of things with Manchester United. Shout out as
Yeah.
always, Media House in the chat. He's asking how long is Rashford's contract. It's the only extension I care about. We're going to touch on that in our first story. Zoe said, "Don't worry." So yeah, a couple of stories today. Obviously, there's contract extensions on multiple talent at Manchester United. We're going to touch on those. We're going to touch on Shreyas' thoughts on the Burnley game because he wasn't here for the preview. We're going to touch on Ten Hag bringing in a lot of specialists in terms of psychology and sleeping patterns, all that sort of stuff. And we're also going to touch on the upcoming January transfer window and what we can expect to see from that. So let's get into the first news story, shall we? Let me just get my notes up and then we can get going. So we had a breaking news story. I think it was earlier this afternoon. I believe The Athletic and Laurie Whitwell broke the story. Man United have triggered 1-year contract extensions for Marcus Rashford, Diogo Dalot, Luke Shaw, and Fred. So that's coming from The Athletic and Laurie Whitwell. One of the interesting players who was not included in the extension programme was David De Gea, whose contract is also up this summer. Apparently, they're trying to negotiate with him for a contract extension, but on lower terms because he's one of the highest paid players in the club. So before we get on to your favourite player, Shreyas, with David De Gea, let's touch on the other players. Good decision for Manchester
Yeah.
United to extend these players' contracts.
I think, yes, I think with Dallo, it's been, I would say, a really, really smart decision as well because I think he's one, I would say, by far our most improved players in this lineup. He's been the most consistent and he's been the most regular as well. He's been playing week in, week out, 3 games a week at a time as well. So definitely, I think Dalot is one of the players who deserve this extension in his contract, except that I think with Rashford triggering this clause is really smart because then I think Ten Hag would be able to actually assess whether Rashford is that player who can do the job for him or not, rather than giving him a good long-term deal. You can just trigger a clause in his contract, given an year extension. If he's playing well, if he's able to do the job, then definitely he's going to get an extension. But if like we mentioned on the channel before as well, that we're gonna be seeing some reinforcements coming in, whether it's in this window or whether it's in the coming summer window. We are going to be seeing people coming in probably a Cody Gakpo, probably Alejandro Garnacho. He skyrockets in his
Mm-hmm.
momentum once again, the way he had been performing for us before the World Cup started off. So once again, Rashford will have that competition for places, and if he's not able to do the job, then Ten Hag isn't the kind of manager who hesitates in selling a player off.
You've also got PSG circling, haven't you? Like, I know the
Yeah,
PSG president was mentioning, oh, we'd love to sign Marcus Rashford. He's out of contract this summer, etc. Like, and it's not the sort of player you want to lose for free, is it?
yeah,
Like, when you could get, if you are going to sell him, and a lot of Man United fans, admittedly, I was like thinking about it myself after last season. We were thinking about PSG were coming in with a 70,
yeah,
100 million. We're all thinking, take it. Like, you know what I mean? He was taking, but he's been very much improved
yeah,
this. Yeah, he's been very much improved this season. And yeah, you don't want to lose those sort of players for free, to, especially to a PSG who
exactly.
have already got a stacked lineup in Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe.
Yeah,
Could well lose Mbappe in the summer, who knows? But Rashford's a not bad replacement. But yeah, I think it's a
yeah,
great idea to sort of lock it's like you said, Marcus Rashford and Diego Dalot down for an extension, so we don't lose him for free. What about Luke Shaw and Fred? What are your sort of opinions on them guys? Do you think we need to lock them down, or do you think they are players that you think maybe Ten Hag eventually wants to move on?
I think out of one of those players, I'm sure Ten Hag would actually wants to move on is definitely Fred. Because we've seen Fred isn't getting as many opportunities as he used to get last season. Whenever Ten Hag actually sees even Eriksen half fit, like if Eriksen is at 50% fitness, Eriksen plays over Fred. And we've even seen situations where McTominay has been picked over Fred as well. So of course, I think Fred is a really, really good squad player. I think in the last 30 minutes or the last 25 minutes, he can be a really good player who can, just come on with his full burst of energy, win the ball back, and, just creates a spark in the midfield at times. So I think for that, he's a really good player. But I think moving on into the future, we do need someone who is much more well-rounded. Not just, when you have to talk about energy, you need to look into their overall game as well, whether it fits into their passing, whether it fits into the way they like to build up from behind. Like we've seen the difference that Casemiro has made
Yeah.
since he's come in. So I think the same situation definitely lies for Fred. I think once again triggering the clause in his contract is smart. I think it gives Ten Hag that option to actually assess more options in the market because we've seen us getting linked with Frankie De Jong all over again, but you never know. Sometimes in the transfer market, the way it works, somebody completely different just pops up and they end up being a really really good signing.
Well,
So
there
I
was a
think with
sorry to interrupt, but there was a story,
yeah
wasn't there, recently with Frankie De Jong saying privately, apparently, he said
yeah
to Ten
yeah yeah
Hag
yeah
that he would be interested in joining Manchester United, but obviously publicly he said otherwise. So do you think that's something that comes back around in the summertime? Because there's been stories that United want to further invest in this midfield. Because obviously, if you take I'd say the starting three, in my opinion. If you
yeah
take Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno out, that's back to the basic midfield that we had
yeah
in previous
yeah
seasons, and it just
yeah
doesn't function, does it? So, do you think that's something Ten
exactly
Hag's looking at? He's looking at future investment in
yeah.
midfield.
I think we're still in the hunt for two midfielders. I would say not just a box to box, but we're actually in the hunt for a defensive midfielder as well who can do the job when Casemiro isn't there. And that's why I think Ten Hag is actually looking at Frankie De Jong because uh, once again, Ten Hag isn't the sort of manager who I would say goes after a player even though he rejects the club or rejects him from coming. I mean, the way he's handled the Ronaldo situation, you can see that if someone doesn't want to be at his club, he wouldn't go in for him a second time. So I think definitely there is a relation there with Frankie De Jong, and if he does, I think definitely we're gonna be linked with him again in the summer. Even I would say in this window itself, we'll be linked with him all over again. And if it does happen, I think Casemiro, Frankie De Jong, and Bruno doesn't look like a bad midfield.
Yeah,
It looks like a really solid and balanced midfield where you've got the creativity of Bruno, you've got the ball carrying ability and passing ability of Frankie De Jong, and then you've got one of the best midfielders in the world at the moment in Casemiro. So it does sound like a very very balanced midfield, and I think except Frankie De Jong as well, we'll be linked to a couple of more names. So it would be really interesting as to how things shape up with the ownership as well. You never know how
yeah,
things are going to work for us next season.
yeah.
And I think with Luke Shaw, I think the jury is still out for him because up until now, Luke Shaw has had good games. He's had some really, really horrendous games as well, where Malacia has had to come in and he's completely outclassed and outshone him in the pitch. And I think one of the things that Luke Shaw definitely has to work on still is consistency because I Luke Shaw still doesn't give me that sort of confidence.
I
Except for
agree.
the 8 months that he actually played under Ollie, that's the only time I would say that you could actually lock down on Luke Shaw on having a good performance every single game. That hasn't really replicated this season. There has been glimpses. There have definitely been glimpses of what of his level and what he can reach, but consistency is again one a really really big issue. And I think the same question pops up once again that if you have to struggle with consistency issues with a player like Luke Shaw, who's I would say a very, very experienced player now, has been at the club for over 7 years now. Why not rather invest in Malacia itself, who's still young, who's prone to inconsistency because he's just moved to a completely different league and does offer us more aggressiveness and more energy on the flanks than Luke Shaw, and probably going in for someone different in the window itself. And Luke, if we do end up selling Luke Shaw, it would definitely fetch us at least about 40 to 45 million.
Yeah, no, I think this is, for me, it looks like Ten Hag is obviously he's aware of what's going on with the owner situation. I think he's like, look, I can't afford to lose any players right now, and I don't know what
Yeah,
sort of investment I'm gonna get going forward. So let's lock these guys down for a year, and we could tread
yeah.
water, and we just keep
Exactly.
going and just figure it out. And then when we get to the summertime or wherever the club is sold, we can then figure out, okay, what sort of investment are we getting, what players can I go for, what players can I scout,
Yeah,
etc. I think that's where we're at. A couple of comments in the chat. The chat is very, very lively. Let's just read a couple of those out. Aaron Gregory, Dalot and Rashford needs to get sorted ASAP. I agree. Zoe's Media House. I don't know why Man United haven't given Marcus a 5-year, 6-year contract. With no Ronaldo, we need a player to market. At the end of the day, that's how we sign players to Amazon buyers. I think they're in negotiations with Rashford currently. I think this was
yeah,
just a way not to lose him in the summer. I think they're doing the same thing with Dallo. I think they're
yeah,
negotiating a new
yeah.
deal with him. So I think that will happen eventually. I think they're just sort of covering the backs. Aaron, we'll do a swap PSG, Rashford, and Mbappe. Oh, Nick will love that, wouldn't he? Jesus. Nick's in the chat. De Jong is coming back. Don't worry, lads. Oh, God, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with more graphics I have to make with De Jong's face on it. Fucking hell. That was a summer and a half. And then Zoe's Media House. I wouldn't swap Marcus for any player in the world. I think at the World Cup, Marcus showed what he's capable on the big stage. Yeah, I totally agree, Zoe. And then
Yeah.
Aaron, Nick's got his De Jong shirt printed already. Yeah, he does. He really does. He's still not giving me that whiskey, by the way. I'm still waiting on that. So yeah, Nick, sort it out. Um, let's move. Let's just the last player that I mentioned briefly, and obviously one of your
Yeah.
favorite players, David De Gea. He has not been. His option has not been triggered for a further year, but the club are negotiating with him for a new deal. So there's some willingness for him to stay at the club, but they're trying to negotiate on lower terms in terms of his wages. Because he's one, I believe he's one of the highest paid players at the club now that
Yeah, he's on
Ronaldo has left.
about 350K now.
Yeah,
So,
so they're trying to negotiate his wages down. Do you see him staying at United beyond this summer, Suresh? Do you think he stays?
yeah, I think I do see him being a part of United for at least the coming 2 seasons at least, because uh once again I think De Gea definitely has improved a lot this season when it comes to his all round game. There have been a couple of games where once again we have had to see classic De Gea saves just for us to get the 3 points. And I think except that, even if we have to sell him, we do need to give him a new contract, because if we end up losing, someone like David De Gea on a free transfer after he's been at the club for about 10 to 12 seasons, uh, and for a keeper, he's in his prime years, then we actually are at a very, very terrible loss when it comes to, looking into it financially. And that has been happening for us for quite some time. But at a certain time, we definitely, we need to change the cycle with, I would say, biggest players who can. I mean, if we are selling the hair, we can easily sell him for about 60 to 70 million in this market. We easily can if we are more active in the market, and we can definitely get 60 to 70 million for him and probably reinvest it in the squad. But I think still the keeping situation would be my last priority,
Yeah,
because we've seen David De Gea can do the job for us. Except that as well, the way his shot stopping ability is still, I would say, by far one of the best in Europe. His distribution game seems to look much and much better, especially when Varane and Lisandro Martinez play in front of him. He looks much more composed while he's trying to play the ball out from the back, because the ball carrying ability of Lisandro Martinez and the way Varane is able to absorb pressure, it just completely balances that back line. And with the way Delo has been able to perform this season as well, it does give the goalkeeper a lot more composure as well, because you wouldn't want to play out from the back when you've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, Harry
no,
Maguire, and Victor Lindelof in front of you.
no.
We've seen how many goals we conceded because of that last season. So, um, there there has been a big positive change in his overall game. Hopefully, we can see more of it. when the season kicks in once again. And yeah, I think at least a 2 year deal. I think David De Gea would still be locked down for at least 2 years. Because I think the more important areas for Ten Hag to sort out right now are definitely a striker, a winger, two
Right
midfielders, a
back.
right back in there as well. And if Luke Shaw does end up leaving, a left back position is still up for grabs. If Harry Maguire ends up leaving, a centre back position is still up. There are so many areas still left.
Yeah.
So I think before we actually sort out our, I would say, outfield players, I wouldn't, want to mess with the goalkeeping situation.
No, I think Aaron in the chat is De Gea's definitely got enough credit in the bank to be rewarded with a new contract. Yeah, he's definitely got sort of credit
Yeah,
in terms of what he's done for the club, the saves he's pulled off, and the way he's been. I think was he voted like Player of the Year 2 years in a row or something like that.
yeah,
So yeah, he's a quality shot stopper, and apparently they've been working on his distribution and his feet and stuff like that, and we saw some of it in pre-season, and it's just kind of little bits here and there. I'd love to see him improve it. If he can improve that side of his game, then we're golden. We're good for the next few years. But yeah, like you said, we've got more priority positions: right back, midfield, striker, etc. And then you might see a lot of outgoings. I probably won't see any
yeah,
outgoings in January, but in the summer, I can
yeah,
imagine Harry Maguire might be
yeah,
among them. Axel Tuanzebe, Wan-Bissaka, etc. You can see a lot of people going, so
yeah,
then you need to bring in squad players to replace those people. So yeah, I wouldn't. I'd offer him a new 2 year contract, like you said, but obviously they want to bring the wage bill down. So, and then again, it depends on the new owners. Depends who comes in and buys the club. Like they might want to completely do something different. But yeah, that's the contract situation. Let's move on to the other news story. That Ten Hag is apparently he's bringing in a bunch of different specialists to help the
yeah,
players in the club. So is this was from James Ducker in the Telegraph. Ten Hag is using a team of specialist mind coaches in an attempt to limit the threat of Man United World Cup players suffering any mental hangover from the tournament. He wants to leave no stone unturned in his efforts to ensure Man United bounce back strongly after the tournament. Ten Hag is also consulting the executive and experts from Tour de France cycling teams for advice on optimum sleep patterns and nutrition for the players after the World Cup. He hopes to help his players cope with any psychological issues and has been using a Dutch company talent academy since taking over Old Trafford in the summer. He also wants to seek out marginal gains wherever he can to take Man United to the next level. He wants to improve on everything possible, including, as I just mentioned, nutrition and sleep habits. So we already know Ten Hag is his attention to detail is second to
yeah,
none. Like we know he's all about he's on the pitch checking grass length. He's making sure that the players only eat at the canteen, what he's knowing what they're eating, checking their sort of body fat percentages, make sure they get enough sleep. And now he sort of seems to be taking things a step further, making sure players who obviously crashed out in the tournament, Rafael Varane, probably a big
yeah,
example, losing in a final the way they did. I can imagine that has an effect on a player. Players like the Brazilians and the Portuguese who looked really, really strong, looked like they might go all the way, ended up crashing out. So the psychological sort of help, I think, is fantastic. And then, yeah, the nutrition and sleep habits just seems like every other team seems to be doing this sort of thing. They seem to be absolutely dialing in all these 0.1 percentages to get that extra gain. If it works, why wouldn't you do it? I don't understand why a
yeah.
club like Manchester United wasn't already doing this. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I'm just impressed with his attention to detail, and I'm also annoyed that this wasn't brought in
Yeah.
beforehand. The size of our club that it is, that we weren't doing this already.
Yeah, I think definitely it was needed as well because, like you mentioned, after the Euros ended, we could see that this situation happening with players like Marcus Rashford, players like Luke Shaw, players like Harry Maguire. They weren't just performing, on the pitch the way we saw them performing. And definitely, a big stage like the World Cup, if you crash out the way, especially these sides did, like Brazil on pens, Varane in the final on pens, you had Portugal going out with who are basically a star-studded side. No one expected Morocco to beat them, so it definitely plays a big, big, big impact on the mental health of the players. And with the kind of players we have at the moment and the way we need them to perform, it is definitely important that they're on the right track, that they're able to keep their head down and work their way up once again, build confidence, play week in and week out for the club, and hopefully, put it behind them and work towards the future. So definitely, like you mentioned, a big club like Manchester United, we definitely needed that, because in the past few seasons we've had some really really rough moments, especially in the last season, even the season before that when we lost to Villarreal in the final. I think the that are the sort of situations where you definitely need this side of coaching and this side of psychological experts actually coming in and helping the players not to just completely eliminate their confidence altogether. And I think definitely there are two sides to a player's game. One is definitely how their physical game, how they perform on the pitch, and one is their mental game where they it just comes down to confidence and how much they believe in themselves. And we've seen players like Rashford struggling with it last season.
Yeah.
It has pretty much taken an entire full season and Ten Hag coming in, a whole preseason for Rashford to actually build that confidence back.
Martial's
So
the same way.
yeah, Martial as well. So Diogo Dalot, one of those players as well, getting that confidence back, playing week in and week out. We can actually, I would even say with Rafael Varane, the way he used to get injured last season for us, definitely there has been an improvement in that side.
Mm-hmm.
He's been featuring for us a lot more. So definitely there are some positive changes, and I think this side of coaching is definitely needed. In the age that we are in right now, the way the players even get slandered after crashing out of tournaments, they do need that backing.
Social media, especially just
Yeah,
getting the abuse on social media. But I can't remember which player it was, but I remember a football player doing an interview. He said football is 80% mental, like it's 80% mental capacity. Like if you can get 80% of your mental sort of health right, you're like
yeah,
over 3/4 of the way there. Nick with a question: if all the United players did a Tour de France, which is the massive cycle race, if you're watching and you don't know what the
yeah.
Tour de France is, who do you think will win it? Who's the fittest player at the club? Ooh, good question. I think Ericsson would be in there because he seems to put up massive distance when he
Yeah.
runs. Diogo Dalot, he fucking runs a lot. Who do you think would win the cycle race? Shreyas?
I think Lisandro will win it, because if
Sandro.
someone actually, yeah, he might just push the bike off, or just push someone off the bike
Yeah, just
if he sees
kick
someone
somebody
actually
off when
matching.
he's
Yeah.
riding past us. Yeah, he's not one to lose a competition. Aaron's saying Bruno definitely never stops running, plays every game. Yeah, another
Yeah.
good option there. I dare tell you wouldn't win it. Ronaldo, he's not winning that race, is he? Can't be asked. Can't be asked sprinting. Phil Jones isn't win that race because he's crashing that bike
Yeah.
in the first 20 minutes. That bike's going into the wall. So yeah, he's
He
not.
will. Phil Jones will crash the bike before the race even starts.
Yeah, just crash into everybody at the beginning. He's saying the reason I asked because Ten Hag has been talking to Tour de France professionals. Yeah, we just covered that, like Nick, when we
Yeah.
were speaking then, just in case you missed it. But yeah, I think that's it in terms of Ten Hag and the sort of stuff he's doing. It'd be interesting to see if that has an effect, even if it has like a 0 point whatever percent, tenth of a percent, etc. I think that's worth doing because we need everything we can get right now, and we need to make sure
Yeah.
we finish in the top four and maybe see if we can get a trophy this season. And if these little measures help us in any way, let's do it. Let's spend the money and let's do it. Phil Jones would need stabilizers. Yes, he would. Definitely would need stabilizers. Oh god. Anyways, let's not turn into Phil Jones roast again. We've
Yeah.
done that
Yeah.
several times. Last story before we go today. What's Aaron saying now? Maguire wouldn't be able to figure out how to work the bike. Oh fucking hell! We've opened the door here. We've opened the door. God's sake. Yeah. Subscribe to the channel, everybody. If you like this sort of content, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, so next story. Striker. Obviously, Manchester United, Ronaldo left the club unceremoniously last month, just before the World Cup, after doing a tell-all interview with the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2. Striker is obviously a priority right now. We've got Anthony Martial, who's only number 9, recognised number 9, and we have Marcus Rashford, who can play there but doesn't isn't his
Yeah,
favourite position. So a striker is priority, but Ten Hag is also wanting a right back, and a Wan-Bissaka solution could be found in terms of him going out on loan. Wolves are interested, Leicester are interested, and I believe Southampton were also found as being interested. I had this discussion or slash debate with Severe and Nick on a previous video. I don't think we're signing anybody in January,
yeah,
just because of this owner situation and the way things are and the uncertainty. I don't see why they would spend money when they are looking
exactly.
to get out of the club and looking to sell. I don't understand why they would spend money. So I don't believe we're getting anybody in there. It'd be great if you get a striker minimum, but like Ten Hag, he's going to demand that he wants a right back as well, which I totally agree, and we definitely do need. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you think, firstly, on do you think we're going to get anybody, and if we do, is it just a striker, or do you think there's a chance of us getting a striker and a right back? And then we'll touch on Aaron Wan-Bissaka after that.
I think it is going to be really hard for us to actually sign in anybody in this window, because one thing that we all know about the Glazers is that they'll love to maximize their profits. And right now, the way that they can actually maximize profits is just by selling. They don't really, they aren't really in a situation where they would even consider actually reinvesting any money into the club, because they're actually selling it. Even if fans protest, they can just say that, we are selling the club, the entirety of the club as well, in the coming summer or in the coming spring. So it doesn't really fill me with confidence that they're leaving and they would be looking to invest in our team when they've actually had full ownership, and they weren't even considering selling the club. Even in those situations we were getting linked to players like Arnautovic and Rabiot. So
Yeah.
uh I don't think we're going to be signing anyone in this window, because the market price of the players that we'll be going in for as well has definitely skyrocketed after the World Cup. Uh, Cody Gakpo will definitely be going for at least about 50 million now. Um, I think with the right back situation as well, we'll first have to narrow down our options and then actually go in for a right back. Um, and except that as well, I really don't see the Glazers actually paying any amount of money now till the
No.
time they actually sell the club. So one thing's that, and secondly, I'm not really a fan of loaning out Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think it should definitely be a permanent deal. We've already got enough players out on loan, and Eric Bailly, Alex Telles. I think the more the loan deals, the I think it is the worse for us, because all these players are gonna be coming back next season, and then once again the whole new drama starts
Yeah.
where we actually have to sell them, and it creates more pressure on the club to actually offload players, because we really struggle when it comes to doing transfers, whether it's incomings or outgoings. We completely stagnate on one deal itself, and it hurts our entire window as a whole because of it. So at least with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I would like to actually sell him. We can still at least get about 20 to 25 million for him, which doesn't really sound to me like a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Considering he hasn't touched the ball up until now for us in the Premier League. So
Yeah.
even if we get 20 to 25 million for him, we can just use it and reinvest it just within the club itself. We don't really, we aren't really in a situation where we have to go in for a star player or something like that. We just need someone who can do the job for us when Delo can't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like again, it's just United trying to sell players. We're just terrible at it. We can't do it, and we've never been able to do it. And it's always been a struggle. It took us what 3 years to sell Andreas Pereira to Fulham. Like,
Yeah,
it took us
after
that
four
long.
loan deals or three loan
Yeah, it's
deals, that's
just
when we were able to sell him.
I think if we're gonna do loan deals, we need to put in like an obligation clause. Like if you loan him, you have to then buy him at the end of the summer. That's the only way I think
Exactly.
loan
And
deals work.
yeah, and even if we have to loan players, why not loan out players like Zidane Iqbal,
Yeah,
players like Charlie Savage? That would make much more sense rather than loaning out players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who are not going to be doing anything even when they come
no.
back.
Yeah, it just take you're gonna take a loss on him, just sell him. Just sell him and
Yeah,
just be done with it and move on. Like we've got Ethan Laird on loan. So if you can't bring in a right back, bring him back from loan. I'm
yeah,
sure he'd be a
yeah.
great backup option to Dalot as an option if you're not gonna play Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So I just think just sell him and just be done with it. So his media house. Romano's already confirmed interest in players in Jan. I've seen his videos. Yeah, we might have interest in loads of players,
Yeah.
Zoe, but it doesn't mean we're going to sign anybody because Ten Hag doesn't hold the money. The owners do. So he might want the X player, X player, X player, but if
Yeah.
the Glazers aren't willing to spend, that's it. Nick, Wan-Bissaka could defend the castle, but when it comes to attacking, he's effective as a one-legged dog with no balance. Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's last thing. Obviously, Manchester United are back in action tomorrow. Old Trafford in the League Cup. I will be going to Old Trafford to watch the game. Me and Nick did a preview yesterday covering who we thought, and Dan was also on the show. Who we thought would win the lineups. United under this post World Cup period, etc. I just wanted to get your thoughts before we go today, Shreyas. What sort of team are you expecting to see? Because I know a lot of players have come back from the World Cup. Obviously, people like Sandro Martinez and Varane won't be back till next week. But I believe the Brazilian players are back. I believe the English players are back. I believe the Portuguese players are back. So they are technically available, but in my opinion, when I was doing I don't think they'll play personally. But yeah, what are your thoughts? What sort of team do you expect to see tomorrow? Do you expect to be a lot of youth players and a lot of fringe players, or do you expect a lot of these first team guys to be straight back in?
I think we'll be seeing a lot more of our reserves and fringe players definitely because I don't think Lisandro Martinez would be available.
No.
I don't think Varane would be available as well,
No.
and I hope he's not injured the way he limped off.
Apparently, it was just fatigue. Apparently, he's not injured. That's what the
works well
report
for
says.
us. Definitely works well for us because we would have definitely missed him if he would have been out. Except that Casemiro is definitely going to be back, but whether he'll be starting or not, I'm not really sure about that. I think McTominay would be starting ahead of him. I don't think Casemiro would feature for us tomorrow. Bruno could play. I think Bruno could feature for us. Eriksen could once again feature for us because Denmark got eliminated in the early stages of the tournament.
Yeah,
Martial would definitely be starting as well.
I picked Eriksen in my team because like you
Yeah.
said, they crashed out early, and yeah, I agree with Martial because he's played in both friendlies and he's not had to play the World Cup football. So, what about the England players? Do you think the England players will feature?
I think Maguire might feature. I don't think Rashford will feature though. I think Garnacho would start ahead of Rashford on the left wing.
Yeah.
I don't think Jadon Sancho is back yet from.
No.
Yeah. So no Jadon Sancho means probably we might once again be seeing Anthony Elanga being played on the right hand side.
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
I know Anthony is back in training, Brazilian Anthony, but again, I don't think he starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think I like it
Yeah,
like you said. I think Elanga he comes in.
Yeah, I think Elanga would definitely be starting on the right hand side with Garnacho featuring on the left. Martial's playing as starting striker. I hope Bruno starts because I think at least the game would seem much more exciting then if at least Bruno plays. Because if Bruno doesn't play, then probably Zidane Iqbal might feature instead of Bruno Fernandes.
Again,
Eriksen being played as a 10.
Again, that's who I said. So I'll go through my lineup just so we can be thing. So I said Dubravka. I said Brandon Williams at left back. I said Lindelof, Maguire, and Terrell Malacia at right back. And then I said Eriksen, Zidane Iqbal, McTominay, Elanga, Martial, Garnacho. That was my team that I picked.
Yeah, I think makes much more sense because players are just coming back from the World Cup. They're gonna need a little bit of time to, actually once again readapt to Manchester, readapt to the club, and once again integrate with the squad. I think it will definitely take a little bit of time. So yes, I think, and we probably might be even seeing Donny van de Beek coming on once again in tomorrow's game. But I think this is going to be the last opportunity for these players to actually show something because if they don't perform tomorrow, I don't see them in getting any chances in the future.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity for these young and fringe players. Like they've got an opportunity here to do something, and let's see what they do. What about score predictions? What do you think? I know you said 1-1 in the chat yesterday. Are you going with that? Are you sticking with that?
Yeah, I'm sticking with 1-1 because considering we don't have our best players on the pitch, and I've seen how much our quality drops when we, just feature our bench players. So just just imagining how we'll feature when we play our reserve players and fringe players. I don't really see us scoring a lot of goals tomorrow. So I think a draw is somewhat seeming more likely to me.
Don't say that, Sharez. I'm going to the game. I don't want to see a lot of not a lot of goals and stuff. That's not going to be fun. Yeah, it'd be interesting anyway because obviously Vincent Kompany's now the coach of
Yeah,
Burnley.
only.
Obviously a lot of history there with Manchester City working under Pep and stuff. So that'll be interesting to see how he sets his team up. I know they've been playing really, really well in Championship. Won the last
Yeah.
3 games, scored 3 goals in each of them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Anyway, this is not the Burnley we normally play, where they just set up 10 at the back and just defend, and then lump a ball up. This is not that same Burnley. So
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see what happens. Last question from Nick in the chat: who's got bigger head, Vincent Kompany or Thanos?
Harry Maguire.
There's a third option there. I'm gonna go with I think Thanos. I think Thanos because I'm pretty sure he's like 8 foot tall or something. So his Kompany's head can't be bigger. Definitely can't
Yeah.
be bigger. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're watching and you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as quickly as we can. I think we're on 845 as I remember.
846
I think
now.
846. Awesome. So yeah, help us reach that goal. Follow us on social media. Oh, is a blackout going on in Shreyas' place there? I think we've lost Shreyas. Anyway, we're signing off anyway. So yeah, follow all our social medias. They're in the graphic there. They're also in the description. Give us a message if you want to chat football on the Instagram or the Twitter. Follow the TikTok, and then yeah, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Shreyas, who I think he had a power cut and he's disappeared. But we'll say goodbye. Oh, he's back. Do you have a power cut?
Up.
Yeah. Well, I was just wrapping up anyway, so I think it's come at the perfect time. So yeah, just I was wrapping up. Follow all the social medias. Thank you for joining us, Shreyas. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hopefully, hopefully an exciting game tomorrow.
Yeah, let's definitely have it. I'll post a load of footage on the YouTube and on the Instagram reels, so you'll see a lovely inside of the ground and stuff like that. So yeah, let's go United, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Peace, everybody.